a colony that was excavated and filled with cement, and those are people crawling around inside the colony. Right, so we have a great size range here, and we can ask questions about how ant colonies use information and how that might affect scaling relationships that we see within ant colonies. So this is a great plot that Chen Hu and Jamie Galuli and their colleagues put together, showing that ant colonies also show this 3/4 power scaling, that the metabolism of an ant colony tracks that of individual unitary insects that are shown in red. The colonies are shown in black, and have an approximate 3/4 power scaling. There's some other studies that also support that the scaling of colony metabolism is proportional to the mass of the colony, the combined weight of all the ants in the colony raised to 3/4 power. Again, intriguing because it's not obvious that there's a 3D hierarchical fractal network that's generating this 3/4 power scaling. But they do have networks, and we're particularly interested in understanding the scaling of foraging networks and how those might be influenced by the exchange of information by ants on those networks. So I won't have time to tell you much about the field study that we did, but essentially we went out into the field, we gave ants food in different distributions. Just to sort of grossly characterize this, we dyed some seeds red, put them in a big pile, dyed some seeds blue, scattered them at random, and had other seeds and other distributions, and asked questions about how quickly the ants could forage and collect these seeds. We measured foraging rate across colonies that varied substantially in colony size. And then what we found in the end was that indeed ants could use information about the distribution of the food. They could communicate information to each other to collect food that was concentrated faster in a systematic way. What we were expecting to find was that big colonies would be able to do this better than small colonies. We expected these increasing returns from information exchange, that more ants exchanging more information would mean that big colonies are smarter. And we didn't see it. We didn't see any relationship like that at all. And we didn't like that, so we decided we needed more data. And so getting a lot of data is difficult unless you have a computer. And if you have a computer, you can run a model where you put into your model the behaviors that you think the ants are using, and you can ask them things about the model. So to make a long story short, this is a model written by Kenneth Latondra, and I won't have time to show it, but I have a movie on my iPhone if you want to ask me later. We made this model. We could recreate a lot of the behavioral foraging activity of the ants in the model. And so we believed our model, and we could run our model for a wider range of colony sizes. And still, we found that big and small colonies were very good at using information, and they were equally good at using information. So we had no evidence that big colonies use information any better than small colonies. But I will end by saying we did find two intriguing scaling relationships. One is that territory area scales sublinearly with the number of foragers in our model, and this emerged out of the sort of optimal dynamics of ants in the model. So again, ants, like humans, this also matched our field data, could pack more ants into a smaller territory, but still support each ant on a per capita basis. And this is my favorite relationship that came out of this model. The per capita seed intake rate for the ants in this model, ranging from 10 to 10,000 foragers, was a -1/4 power scaling. This was very exciting, extremely exciting at first, because we didn't have an explanation for the 3/4 power scaling that we saw before. This would potentially provide that explanation. Each ant is collecting seeds more slowly because of colony size. And we thought, well, we built this model, we should know where the 1/4 power then came from. Unfortunately, we built this model, we don't know where the 1/4 power came from. In fact, theoretically, we don't have a good reason to expect this to be a power law at all. It's possible, given that low last point, that it's not a power law. And so I'll sort of just end with this point that 1/4 powers seem to abound in these social systems, and we don't yet really have theory to explain why. A nod to making these slides with scaling relationships out of Jim Brown's productivity. Jim Brown is clearly the King Kong of ecologists, and there is a scaling relationship. If you squint, you can see 1/4 powers in it. The number of publications versus the size of Jim Brown's academic family. Superlinear, which I think means that as Jim gets more and more students, he spends more and more time with each one of them getting publications out. I don't know how he does it. It's really amazing. But all of that work combined has had a superlinear effect on the rest of the field, with citations increasing very strongly superlinearly with the size of Jim Brown's lab. So I will end with that, and thanks to Jim.